We are committed to creating a safe and supportive space for our guests and listeners, and to provide information and tools that will help our listeners understand, manage, and overcome trauma. We understand that the healing journey can bring up challenging emotions. Therefore, we want to warn our audience that certain episodes may contain discussions or stories that could be triggering for some individuals. The content of the podcast is for educational and informative purposes only, and we encourage you to practice self-care and discretion while listening, and to reach out to a trusted support system or professional if you feel overwhelmed and need help on your healing journey. Hello and welcome to today's, let me start over again. Hello and welcome to today's podcast of Healing and Growing Hand in Hand. Our guest today is Dr. Joe Kort, and he is a psychotherapist. And some of the topics that we're going to talk about are trauma bonds, how abuse affects men, which is huge. That's going to be probably most of our topic today. We'll probably touch on narcissists, which is interesting. I was married to one. And so those are some of the topics that we're going to talk about today. I also want to share how I actually found you. I don't think you know.
Okay.
So I found you on TikTok, and you have some of the best videos. And why I like them so much is you touch on subjects that I haven't heard anybody else touch on, and some that really touched me that I thought I would have never thought to articulate that. But two of them are, one of them is not feeling protected or not being protected when you're abused as a child. Totally me.
Mm-hmm.
I had no one protecting me. It was me. I was creating my safe space. I was creating, safety for myself. The other one is what I didn't get from my parents.
Yeah.
That one hit hard. I mean,
yeah,
it
that
actually
one went viral. Yeah.
I believe it. I believe it. Because for me, I recognized over the last couple of years during my healing journey that I didn't get love at home. And so I sought out for it and did stuff that I'm not real proud of, just seeking love. I was just seeking love, So anyway, I could see why that one went viral. So thank you again for joining us. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I have been doing psychotherapy since for 38 years. I was 22 when I started, right?
Wow.
I got my MSW right away, and I worked primarily at the time with trauma and with sex addiction at the time. I was trained in that, and sadly, I regret it. Actually, it was 20 years of you get really good training around trauma, you get really good training around addiction, you get zero training around sexual health. So it wasn't until I became a sexual health educator and therapist that I realized the sex addiction model does not work and can actually be abusive and harmful to people in trying to stop compulsive sexual behaviors. So now I do it from a sex positive way. Yeah.
Okay.
So I also work with mixed orientation couples. I help couples with mixed erotic orientation couples where they have different matches around what they like to do in the bed. And I work a lot with infidelity and LGBT.
Excellent. Good. Nice. Okay. So let's start on trauma bonds. Can you explain to us kind of what trauma bonds are so we understand?
Trauma bonds are when you have a trauma and someone else has a trauma and you bond around each other's trauma. And then you can't quit each other. You can't disconnect from it. Now, interestingly, there is no science around that. There is no research around that. It's a cultural and therapeutic. One of the things that we in our field we come up with these anecdotal thinking, and then it resonates with people and it works in language. We don't know how real it is. Something's real, but to call it a trauma bond, I always like people to know it's not research based.
Right. That's interesting because that's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I did in my first marriage. Both my husband and I came together. My ex-husband and I came together. And I call it, we were both hot messes, and we tried to put a life together, and it was not good. It was not good. It wasn't. I was living in complete survival mode. So you could imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 100% until about 7 years ago. So how do we work through the trauma bond? How do we identify it? And then how do we work through that?
I mean, hopefully your partner is willing to do this with you, to come into therapy and be accountable for both of your contributions to how this is, you're stuck in it. It's also called the power struggle when we work with couples, that if we meet people that re-wound us and activate already pre-existing wounds. It's another way of calling it. But if the other partner, if both of you are not willing to see, here's my contribution, here's what I'll change, you're going to have a harder time surviving the couple. You could survive by recognizing, I can't do this, I'm not going to do this, I have a whole different way I'm going to be around this. It takes a lot of time, and then hopefully your partner either comes around or they don't.
Yeah. I see that a lot. And that's actually kind of what happened with me is I recognized the cycles we were in. I mean, I was contributing to this just as much as he was. And I got tired of it. And it took me a long time to work through it. There were a lot of beliefs that no matter what, I couldn't, get a divorce. So I stuck it out as long as I could. But it finally got to the point where we were just hurting each other. And it wasn't good for our son either. So we had to go our separate ways. And we're on good terms. It's all good. We weren't good for each other.
Yeah, right.
So okay, so let's talk a little bit about trauma with men, sexual trauma especially. That one's big. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and how it affects men as opposed to women, I guess, the differences.
Yeah, the biggest difference I see is that, and this is sweeping generalizations, right? Because men and women could switch in what I'm about to say, but when women have been sexually abused, they often sexually shut down, especially when they now start to do the work of their sexual trauma. They don't want necessarily to be sexual, even with themselves or a partner, where men often become hypersexual. And it becomes a compulsion to act out their sexual and really their trauma reenacting is what's happening. And it's harder because both are violations and betrayals and broken agreements in the relationship. If she says, I'm not going to do what I've agreed to do and I'm not going to be sexual, that's a break. If he says, I'm going to be all sexual and I'm going outside the relationship and he's compulsively doing it, that's a break too. His is a harder situation because now it's called, more infidelity. It's seen as cheating, and it's so sad because it's really just a trauma reenactment.
Right. Do you think that in what I've heard from speaking with men who have been abused, both sexual and just all the other types of abuse, that it causes them to shut down more though than a woman? Like women like to talk, right? And although I was quite private about my sexual, or not my sexual abuse, my abuse, but it wasn't a conscious choice. For me, it wasn't a conscious choice. I didn't purposely think, I can't share that with anybody. I just didn't. And for men, I think that they have to deal with that shame, especially if, it's sexual. It seems like it seems to be so much worse. Don't you
Right. Well,
think?
they don't talk about it, like you say. They don't even know what words to use. So then they're doing their behavior on the side and struggling with whatever it brings up for them. And what you see me talking about on TikTok is when straight men have sex with men. They're not gay, they're not bisexual, and people can't understand that what I'm talking about sometimes is if they were perpetrated by a male in their childhood, they're going to seek out male sexual behaviors in their adulthood, but they're not sexual urges, they're trauma urges. And people don't understand that on the internet.
No, talk about that a little more, because I did see that in your video, and it seems like there's so much more to that.
Yeah, so basically we all, if you have a trauma, whether it's sexual or not, if it's unresolved, we return to the scene of the crime. So if it's a sexual trauma, you return to the scene of the sexual crime. And what you do as an adult is you replace the perpetrator with other people in your life and recreate the scenario. So I've had guys who were sexually abused in the shower, in the bathtub, by a grandparent, an uncle, an aunt, a mother. And so then they go out and they might be inappropriate in rest areas, or there's some kind of, there's the themes are the same in what they're doing. And so for the straight men who have sex with men, that's what they're doing. They're returning to the scene of the crime, trying to solve it. But there's no solution in trauma reenactment. It's just a vicious loop over and over again.
Reenacting it, you're just reliving it.
Yes.
I mean, and that's kind of true with other types of trauma as well. I mean, I think about it, and I realized my second husband was full on narcissist. I didn't know it at the time. I saw the behavior was really weird, but then I realized my mother was a narcissist, my brother was a narcissist. And so I just went right into my marriage with a narcissist. And it makes so much, but I had someone ask me this question on another podcast. If left unhealed, will a person who's been abused as a child enter into domestic violence? And I said, yeah, it just looks different. And after they said that question, and I thought about it, and I gave that answer that oh my gosh, I did that. I realized at that moment I did that. So that's kind of a theme that will happen, which seems kind of strange that our minds would take us back, keep taking us back to a place of trauma and reliving it.
Yeah. Well, it's like when you cut yourself, right? Now it wants to heal itself by going to the original wound and putting a scab on it and then doing some, healing on it. So psychologically, we do the same thing. And I like what you just said. We do it through love and we do it through sex.
Yeah. Interesting. And so
you know who Esther Perel is?
Who?
Esther Perel?
Sounds familiar, but maybe not.
Okay, so she's really somebody you should know on the internet. She's big and she's off the internet now and big. And her name is Esther, Esther. This we call Esther Perel. And she has this great line. She does a lot of work with infidelity. She does a lot of work with sexuality. And she'll say, tell me how you were loved as a child. And I'll tell you how you make love as an adult.
Wow.
Very powerful. I agree with her 100%.
Oh, yeah. I live that. Absolutely. Yeah, you just go to what you know. It's so weird. You don't want to be there. I call it like being comfortably uncomfortable. It's the weirdest thing because you know logically this makes no sense, but you keep going back to it.
Yes.
It's so bizarre until you really get a healing, until you have some healing, some aha moments and realizing, for me, what I have to do is slow myself down because I will react. I will want to go that old way and I have to slow myself down, stop and have that pause and then think of something different to do. I'm literally retraining my brain as we speak, doing that right now because I still catch myself automatically doing stuff. So
now here's a difference though. When we do it in relationship and we meet like a narcissist or somebody that's not right for us and unwilling to do the work, of course we want to change who the partner is that we pick next. So it's not a similar thing. In the erotic realm, it's not the same. So what happens is people don't understand that you go from trauma reenactment to trauma play. So in other words, what happened to you as a child is abuse, and then it traumatizes you. So then you return to the scene of the crime. And while that's happening, you break your relationship agreement, you become compulsive, and you put yourself at risk for medical, legal, physical kind of threats.
Yes.
When you do the healing and whatever that looks like, therapy, weekend workshops, couples therapy, individual therapy, whatever, now you may still have the fantasy that you had during the trauma reenactment, only now it's trauma play. Trauma play is I make an agreement with my partner about my wanting to act on this desire. It's not compulsive, I'm at choice, and I'm not putting myself at risk. Different. A lot of people think if I'm still doing this, I'm still reenacting my trauma. You're still reenacting your trauma, but it isn't trauma reenactment. You're playing with it. Now it's yours. Right.
Now, and you're empowered, right? Where before you may feel very disempowered. Now you're empowered because it's your choice.
Yes. And people, yes, right. Before it wasn't your choice, right? Non-consent. It wasn't even sexual. They made it sexual. It was violation, humiliation, power, control. But what people will say is, well, no, I'm going to choose not to have that fantasy anymore. Well, that'd be great if you can do that, but there's no such thing as giving yourself an erotic-ectomy. That's what we tell people. Clients come in and say, get rid of it. I'm not going to be able to help you do that. We can lower the volume, but there's no therapy tool that's been proven to remove or slice out some fantasy that you don't like. They're hardwired, they're imprinted, however they got there.
And as long as you and your partner agree to it.
Yes.
That's the big thing.
Yes. And so then that becomes couples therapy, right? So now one partner may say, yes, I want to do this. The other partner's like, no, I'm not going to do this. Well, that doesn't, the old way, I mean, it's still being done this way. I used to do it. Well, then he said no, so it's no. No, the no is no. We're not going to change you to yes. That makes sense. but there's still a yes in this relationship. There's still somebody that wants to enact this in some way. So you need to negotiate how that's going to happen, because the no shouldn't trump the yes any more than the yes should trump the no.
Right, right. I mean, that's what relationships should be about, is negotiating and working it out.
Differentiating. Yes.
Right, right. Interesting. Interesting. That's interesting. So you can't heal from that erotica desire? Is that what you
can
call
heal. Yeah, well, you heal in terms of you lose the compulsivity, your choice, and you claim it. It's like part of me. It's not against me. It's not separate from me. But it doesn't go away. It's an imprint. And it's become eroticized. It's just normal now.
Right, right. It's not damaged. It's not a bad damaged thing now.
Right. But this is so hard. It's a hard sell to a client who says, I don't want to think about what my uncle did to me. This is terrible.
Yeah.
Well, that is what he did to you, but now it's yours to play with. And you don't have to play with it. If you don't want to, you can just say, that's a fantasy. It can excite me, but I'm not going to engage in that. Okay.
Right.
But it's still there.
Right. Because I would imagine, for a boy and being sexually abused by an uncle, how that would be confusing.
Well, so what happens is, and this happens to women too, but I see more men,
right,
where he now thinks he's questioning his orientation,
right,
because there was a male perpetrator. He enjoyed it. He may have went looking for it.
Right.
Didn't tell anybody.
He responded. Right.
His body responded. I have a lot of gay men actually who say, "Don't tell me that was abuse, even though I was 10 and the guy was 40. It was my first time, and it was really important to me." And I've had to learn that for them, it's their first time. But it still can confuse people around their orientation. So what I tell people is sexual abuse cannot orient you. It will disorient you. So it causes sexual disorientation, confusion, not orientation. It can't make you gay, straight, or bi, or anything in between. It can prompt you to engage in behaviors that are same sex, but that doesn't equal your identity. People want to believe that what we do in bed is who we are outside the bedroom, and that's not always true.
I love that you touched on that, because the biggest thing that I have learned is separating who we are from what we do.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
100%.
And that's the same thing in relationships. You can love someone unconditionally, like my son. I love him unconditionally. Right. I don't love everything he does, but it doesn't change my love for him. But it's the same thing here. You can separate who you are from what you do, and what you do is not your identity.
Right.
When you were sexually abused, I call myself a childhood abuse survivor, and I'm careful with that because I don't want that to really be my identity. Is just I'm a childhood abuse survivor, right? But yeah, separating the who from the do is what I say all the time.
Yeah, I like that. Separating the who from the do.
Yeah, exactly. It's really helped me a lot in my healing, actually. Because I had a belief system, because I had my brother tell me at a young age, and I believed him with all my heart, that nobody likes me. So at 11 years old, I got this belief system in me, and that is how I carried myself. And so that is how I saw everybody, and that is how I responded, right? In my survival mode, that is really quick how I would respond. And once I caught that and saw that, that's where I slowed down, and I had heard this before about separating the who from the do, and I really embrace that. And that is what's really helped me heal from that lie that I believed for all those years.
Yeah, right.
Interesting. So let's talk a little bit about narcissists, because I was shocked that I married a narcissist, and I did not see it coming at all. I hadn't even really, I'd heard that term, but I didn't understand it back when I married him. And it switched when we got married. It really switched once we got married and lived under the same roof. And I got to the point where I was literally already packing my stuff, ready to leave. Unfortunately, he passed away. That's not funny. But once we found out he got his diagnosis, I stuck around and helped him, because that was important.
That's nice of you.
Yeah, I don't regret that at all.
Good.
But it was crazy. I remember I would look at him sometimes and say, "What the F is wrong with you?" Some of the stuff that would come out of his mouth, accusing me of the craziest stuff. So let's talk about narcissists a little bit.
Yeah, so here's what the biggest thing I get on the internet. You probably saw this on TikTok. Everybody thinks that they are a narcissist when they're, right? Because they're over-identified with the people who raised them, or even in relationship, because the narcissist is all about disowning anything about themselves, so they make you carry their material.
Right.
So I tell people that most of you are narcissistically defended, not a narcissist. And nobody's heard of that word. And I was actually surprised because I've been using that word for years and a lot of therapists don't know that word. I wrote
Wow.
an article on Psychology Today called "Are You a Narcissist or Narcissistically Defended?" and it went viral. And basically it's when you're a narcissist, everything is about you. Everything is taken as a criticism if you're given feedback. You gaslight others. You make them, you're so disowned, you make other people feel what you don't want to feel. And you really don't care about how it makes the other people feel. When someone's narcissistically defended, what happens is they have come from a background where they had to hang on to themselves and stay attuned to themselves because no one else was hanging on. No one else was attuned to them. So now it's a defense. And so the difference for somebody like them is they can be accountable, they'll reflect, they will worry. If they worry they're a narcissist, they're worried about how they've affected other people.
That's not a narcissist.
Right, a narcissist worries if they're a narcissist because they don't want to be seen as a narcissist. They don't care how they affected other people. Different.
Right.
Yeah, that video went almost to 1 million. I mean, people loved it. They were so relieved to hear that there was a word for, because I would say that I was raised by narcissists too. And my marketing, the fact that you found me on TikTok, the fact that I'm so successful in my little micro world of all my specialties is because that's how I manage my narcissistic defensiveness. I can be narcissistic in my marketing and it works. I found a way to make it work.
Nice. I love it. And, there's, I think for the most part, narcissists don't ever change, right? Is that true?
No,
Would you say?
they don't do the work to change. So you don't see a lot of change. The two ways they can, there might be more, but the two ways they can change is if they care enough about being in relationship with you for whatever reason, money, children, not you necessarily, they'll modify their behavior because they know if they don't, they're going to be out and they don't want to be out. The other way is they get older and they get disempowered. Or maybe not even just older. They just, the more you disempower them and the more they have no control over it. So then if they stay in the relationship, they're not going to act that way anymore. They don't change their narcissism. They change their behavior.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And there's so much on the internet about narcissism. I mean, it just, once I saw it, it was just like, it seems like everybody's talking about it.
Yeah.
And there's just an energy to it that I felt. And it was weird because as soon as we got married, I think it was on a Friday, and I moved in, that weekend. And I can remember the first Monday when he went off to work, and I was a nervous wreck in this house, and that wasn't like me. And it didn't feel like a home. There was just this weird energy right away. And I couldn't put my finger on it. And I mean, it's as silly as, and he didn't do anything or say anything, but this is how the energy worked. This is going to sound really silly. But that Monday morning, I decided I was going to have some turkey bacon, right? And he had made a comment about one time somebody made turkey bacon in the house and it stunk up the house. So I waited for him to go to work. And then I made the stupid turkey bacon and it stunk up the house, right? It's strong. I was freaking out. I knew he wasn't going to be back for 8 hours, but I was opening up that house. I was blowing out that house, trying to get that smell out. What was that? Like he had not shown to me any of the crazy narcissistic stuff yet, but man, did I feel that energy, right? That was crazy.
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
Yeah, and it didn't get better after that. So it was, I guess I was just really sensitive to it, but I just I couldn't put any words to it. And then I just saw some of the crazy behavior. But so I don't know what to say anymore about that. But I saw the craziness, and of course he completely ruined my reputation with the people that he knew, and that really hurt because I stuck around for him and I was there for him. And I wouldn't have changed that. Yeah. But I'm still working on the forgiveness with him, honestly. Honestly, I still get kind of mad.
That's hard. Yeah, that's hard. You've got to decide that for yourself.
Yeah.
I think everything needs forgiveness. I'm not one of those people that believe in forgiveness.
Oh,
that you can't go on, you can't heal without forgiveness. I think it's bullshit.
Oh, no. I agree. And really, forgiveness is for me. Has nothing to do with him. And it's my walk, absolutely. But I mean, I see some of these stories on TikTok and stuff where these moms are, or even men, parents, let's call them parents, that have kids and they're married to a narcissist, and what they go through for years in the court system and everything is just, it's unbelievable.
Right. I did a video about parental alienation, and that went viral. People so sad, the stories. I almost wish I hadn't done it because it was such a negative, so sad. I mean, the courts are not set up to know or do anything about it. And so the narcissist wins in the courtroom.
I know. I just had a friend, and I won't get too much into detail about her story, but she was with a narcissist for a long time, and they broke up a few years ago. He has been after her the whole time. It is the weirdest thing. It's like they want to ruin you, and he's the one that walked out of the relationship, and he has been doing stuff to her. He brought her to court, and he ended up winning, even though he was lying. The judge believed him. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't end up working with narcissists, thankfully. I can tell through the phone call if somebody's going to be narcissistic or in a character defect that I don't want to work with. Sadly, I don't answer my own phones anymore, so sometimes they sneak in here. I see more the people that they've wounded, the people that are struggling and suffering from the abuse.
Right, and that's what I was going to say. And so what advice would you have for them? I mean, what tips would you have for them? It's kind of hard.
Yeah, I've done so many videos, I have to think about it. But first of all, narcissists are predictable. So I've been involved with several narcissists because, when you're raised by them, you go out into the world and that's all you see. And that's what you're drawn to. You don't even know.
True.
And now, though, when I get it, I don't always get it because they can fool you. They can act empathic. They don't really have empathy. They have cognitive empathy. They know how to speak empathy. They know how to make you feel that there's empathy. But once you get it, there are so it's like all of a sudden you're like, oh, great. All right. So now the predictability is I'm never going to be alone with you when I need something. If I need something from you, I'm going to always make sure there are witnesses around that the narcissist cares about. Because if it's just you, they're going to say or do whatever they want and not follow through. But if they're being watched, that's different. You don't end up criticizing. You don't say anything. No feedback. Get rid of any idea that you're going to change them. There's no changing a narcissist. You might say, hey, can I give you feedback? And if they say no, you stop. Even if I have clients that are like, I insist on it. Insist on it all you want. A narcissist is going to hear you criticize them. You and I can take it. I don't like criticism or feedback that's negative, but I can take it. What I can't take is somebody, criticizing my character. For a narcissist, every criticism feels like a criticism of their character.
Yeah. No, I agree. You don't argue with them. Yeah, you're not going to win.
No, you're never going to win. And people want to win. They want somehow to be at some balance. There's no balance in that. You're going to have to let that go. You have to stay with a narcissist. You're going to have to allow them to feel like they're the one, but you do your own thing and don't humiliate yourself and don't make yourself subservient. That's not the answer. But don't put yourself in a situation where you're going to try to have a conversation with them. A real dialogue. It's a monologue when you're with a narcissist, not a dialogue.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I had when I saw, again, I didn't have a label on it, but his behavior was so outrageous, and I just decided quietly before we found out he had the cancer again, I was going to save up my money, and I was literally willing to start completely over. Like I was willing to move out and rent a room and start my life over. That's how bad I wanted to get away from it. And I'm glad I had the strength that I would have done that. That's what I would have actually done,
Yeah, good.
And a lot of people don't have that.
Right. They don't. Interesting.
Well, this has been wonderful and very informative. I love it. Yeah, I would probably like to have you back. Not probably. Let's edit that out. I would love to have you back on again because this is interesting, and we can talk more about the sexual orientation. There were other things in that arena that you wanted to talk about too, and I think is really interesting. And so, yeah, I'd love to have you back and talk about that because that isn't talked about enough, and we need help.
Yeah, right. People need help. Yes.
It's okay.
And there's a lot of bad information on the internet, sadly. So you got to know where to go to.
Yeah, exactly. So tell everybody how they could get a hold of you if they'd like to reach out to you.
All right. I'm on all social media platforms, TikTok especially. I just went up to 666,000. So if people can join and get me out of that 666, because it's kind of
Yeah.
scary to be there,
Yeah.
but I'm on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and everything is at Dr. Joe Kort, DrJoeKort. And if you go to my website, it's joekort.com.
Great. And we'll have all your links and everything as well. So
Great.
thank you so much for this great information, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lisa.